As we've been mentioning all week, the polls are showing that Republicans are now in a position to firmly take the majority in the House of Representatives, probably in the Senate as well. How big that wave is, will it be a tsunami? That's going to be worked out in the next few weeks. The bigger question over here is, if they get the majority, what will they do with it? Joining us right now is Ohio Republican Representative Brad Wenstrup. Thanks for joining us, Congressman.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Well, you're on the Ways and Means Committee and the Intelligence Committee. These are two very important, critical positions, especially when it comes to potential congressional hearings and investigations. So I'd love for you to put your Intelligence Committee hat on for a moment. This week we had the final acquittal, sadly, of Mr. Danchenko in the John Durham investigations in terms of what the FBI did and didn't do during the Russian collusion investigation. Is that now dead, sir, or will your new House majority, and specifically the Intelligence Committee, get to the bottom of what went wrong in that agency with regard to Russian collusion and the Steele dossier?
Yeah, I think for the sake of a functioning American government, we need to continue to look into the things that took place and within our agencies, what was done right, what was done wrong, and were things politicized. All of those types of questions need to be asked, and on behalf of the American people, because we really need to reestablish some trust. The acquittal of Danchenko is just one thing, and I think that what Mr. Durham was doing was bringing out all of the things that took place, bring it to the attention of the American people if they're willing to pay attention. You know, our media doesn't help very much with this, unfortunately, in many cases. So I appreciate the opportunity to discuss these matters with you. But yeah, you know, in addition to what we've done as far as hard work at Republicans in the House and our commitment to America, we are making plans for where we want to move forward so that we can really bring to light all the things that have taken place within our agencies that America should be concerned about.
Well, and to that end, there's a movement here in Washington. I know you're back at your home state campaigning, so let me fill you in. They're beating the drums here over at the Justice Department to keep Mr. Durham from actually releasing a final report, which would be unprecedented. Special prosecutors, whether they get convictions or not, they always release a report. The suggestion here is that if Attorney General Merrick Garland releases that report, it might shed a bad light on the FBI. Are you going to push in your position in the Intelligence Committee and in Ways and Means to make sure that that report gets out?
Yeah, very much so. Look, I want to be able to trust the FBI. When I got on Intelligence Committee, you know, my goal was that we're going to be here. You know, I have a military background. I've had a clearance before I ever came onto this committee. But the goal was to work with the FBI and to work with the intelligence community on things. And what I found is that it's full of roadblocks, and they don't feel that they have to inform us of things. And we have the role of oversight, and we've been reminding them of that. And I will tell you, on the committee, we're starting to see some Democrats get frustrated with all of that, too. Yeah. But America has gone through this whole Russian collusion scenario, which proved to be false, made up. You've seen the abuse of the FISA court. And that, to me, is one of the most egregious things. You know, Larry, in the military, unethical is unlawful. And I think that's one of the problems we have in our agencies, where unethical behavior is not necessarily unlawful and there's not a punitive measure that you can take. You know, and then we go through the Steele dossier, too, where actually Christopher Steele, who's hired ultimately by Clinton and the Democrats, was actually the one working with the Russians. And then even the Hunter Biden disinformation coming out of our agencies. And, you know, and when your media cooperates with this is all the makings of an authoritarian state. Same with saying, no, you can't put this report out. And I can give you a couple more examples, Larry, involving the baseball shooting, for example. You know, that happened that day. The guy came. He had been there for 2 months. He had names of Republicans in his pocket. He was heavily armed. He came to kill us. He had no idea the police were there. Steve Scalise wasn't there, who took a bullet for all of us. Capitol Police aren't there to fire back on this guy. Well, the FBI, after that event, 136 rounds fired. They never came and interviewed any of us that were on the field that day. But when they did come a couple months later to give us an overview, they said, well, we just conclude that this was suicide by cop. And we said, he doesn't even know there's police there. How can you make this statement? Yeah. Well, it took us 4 years to have Christopher Wray in front of us. And I gave him all the details of the event and said, you know, this is an impossible scenario, because if you want suicide by cop, pull a gun on a cop.
Yeah.
And Christopher Wray, I said to him, do you know who was in charge of the FBI on that day? And he said, yes, it wasn't me. And I said, I know, it was Andrew McCabe. Andrew McCabe was part of this whole FBI, Russian collusion and the FBI involvement with all of that. So, let's follow and find the facts on everything as best we can. But I will tell you, we have sought the case file. And there's two of us on Intelligence Committee that were fired upon that day, and they have still not given it to us. And there's no active investigation, which is often an excuse they use. And that should be no excuse, because we have oversight over these agencies and we have clearance and we're read in on everything. But the man is dead. There's no investigation going on. We want to see the case file and know how they got it so wrong and why they got it so wrong.
Yeah. And again, Congressman, I mean, you represent the people there. If they don't answer to you, what is an American citizen? What chance do we have if we have a run-in with the FBI? This is why it's so important. And one more question with your Intelligence Committee hat on. Those 50 former members of the Intelligence Committee community that put out that letter right before the election, swearing up and down that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian intelligence, Russian disinformation. Why do those people still have clearance? Why are they able to wear the mantle of intelligence community official if they're just using their title and their position to lie to the American people? The laptop story was not Russian disinformation, sir, and it affected the election.
That's exactly right. What does their evaluation look like? I mean, at what point does somebody say, you know what, you really aren't doing the job? And so either you're doing it politically and you're getting away with it because up at the top they say it's okay to do this. Then we've got a real problem of how our agencies are conducting. And again, there needs to be punitive measures in place when people are doing unethical things and doing things for political purposes in agencies where that's the last place it should be.
Well, one thing we've learned from the Democrats and what they're capable of doing is they're really good at running investigations and committee hearings. They make a TV show out of it. So I'm excited to see the Republicans in the majority and sort of follow their lead. Let's go to Ways and Means now, because that's about spending money. And I think it's fair to say we spent more money in the last 3 years on the COVID-19 pandemic that maybe we spent in our existence up until the last 3 years. And yet we've had no oversight committee hearings, Congressman Wenstrup, about where this virus came from and whether the Chinese continue to lie to us about it and what our government through the NIH had to do with it. Are we going to finally get those answers?
Well, what I want to do is follow the facts, and I've been trying to follow the facts as best I can. We've been asking a lot of questions about who got grants and what were they for, and following this whole thing from the beginning. You know, I see Dr. Fauci will often say, you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to gain of function. Well, maybe he's talking about a chimera. He calls it a chimera. Chimera is actually a scientific term of what we have been able to create as scientists. And I say we because the first article I found was from 2015. And this type of research, gain of function or production of a chimera, was being performed not only here in North Carolina, but in conjunction with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So we need to get answers from these people as how engaged were we with this? There was a 2014 article where Dr. Fauci was asked about this type of research and questioned on the danger of it. And he said, well, I think the benefits outweigh the risk, and therefore we should go through with this. Because he was questioned, what if this got out of a lab and created a pandemic? And that was in 2014. So now we find out some of this type of research is still going on. You know, the Obama administration put a pause on it, but in that pause, they said that a government official could reopen this type of research. A lot of questions need to be answered on that. We are studying it hard. I'm studying the science. I've learned a lot about how this technique even takes place. But the idea of creating something so infectious is obscene to me. Their theory was, well, if we can create a vaccine for it, then we're in good shape. Well, the problem is you didn't have the vaccine.
And maybe you should have never done this in the first place. Congressman, we're up against it. Final exit question, and it's got to be a short one. Representative Swalwell, your colleague there, should he still be on the Intelligence Committee based on what you know about what happened to him, or will you try to block his participation there?
No, he should not be on there. I mean, this is someone who's compromised. So the answer is no. I don't think they'll appoint him again because they know that we will take him off.
Great. Thank you, Congressman. We look forward to you being in the majority, and we'll have you back. In the meantime, more to come on O'Connor Tonight.